Space, the final frontier. Well, okay, not really. All right, take two. Here in the Mitten State, welcome to Code 47, bringing you all things Star Trek, spanning the quadrants, the best thing since the neutral zone.
We are back once again. This is the Code 47 podcast on the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. I am your Trek Lord of West Michigan, Fleet Captain Charlie Carden, coming at you on this gray and horrific spring snowy Monday here in Grand Rapids. Blurg. So bad. But it's always made lighter when you got a killer podcasting partner like I do. That would be Katie Q. Katie, how are you tonight?
I am doing very well. Excited to talk about DS9. We are starting a new series, so this is going to be fun.
Yeah, DS9 is very special to me because it's the first show that I ever watched stem to stern, never missed it. Because I tuned in and out of TNG. I watched it. I was in middle school when it came on. Watched it, but it didn't stick. And then, when DS9 came on when it was my junior year in high school, and it was aired on the station that my mom worked for, which was WXMI Fox 17 here in Grand Rapids. So I, was really tuned into it for that reason as well. So I love DS9, but we'll get to that soon enough. So, but yeah, first before we do that, of course, we do like to talk about new stuff. Yes, we have 2 episodes of Star Trek Picard. We're into the back end of the season now with episodes 6 and 7. So without further ado, Katie, I will let you do the honors talking about episode number 6.
All right, so episode 6 was 2 of 1. With help of Tannen, Picard and the crew infiltrate the Gala on the eve of a joint space mission to protect one of the astronauts they believe to integral to the restoration of the timeline, Rene Picard. Kor makes a startling discovery about her father's work.
Ooh, man. Ooh. And are these ever plot threads that we get really teased with and then they get dumped for episode 7? Because I was like, what? Oh, man.
Thank you. I felt that exact same way. I just finished up 7 and I was like, what is going on? Because it just seems like they just are like plot thread, and then...
Yep, they got the, I'm not much of a golfer, but I swung the clubs with my dad when I was growing up. So we had that shot teed up, the club was back, and then we just dropped it and did some other stuff. Because, and we'll talk about episode 7 in a minute, but it was in a lot of ways kind of your typical diversionary episode where it's like, well, we want to keep stretching the plot out, so blurb. But interesting in its own right. But I thought this episode was pretty exciting. We started with a book. We started with a bookend. Picard laying on the ground, bleeding, suffering, and then they're like, "Oh God, what did this old bastard do now? Did he fall down some stairs? Is he like a 21st century old person now?" So the episode comes on. Picard is in bad shape. It jumps back to about a half hour earlier, and they're teeing up to get into this gala, which is what they were getting ready to do, obviously, at the end of the last episode. And then Agnes is in the control room, and we see and it's way too funny with the guest star that we have in the next episode. We see that essentially Agnes and the Borg Queen have turned into Baltar in Caprica 6 from Battlestar Galactica, because she's in her head. The Borg Queen is in her head, kind of calling the shots and saying, do this. She's a little devil on her shoulder, helping her execute stuff. And as the episode goes on, helping her be a little vampy in that sexy red dress, and having the playing a little tonsil hockey with Rios and singing. And
I know she could do that.
Yeah, I didn't know if that is really Alison Pill's real voice. But first of all, I've always loved that. I've always loved the Shadows of the Night. Great song by Pat Benatar, of course. It feels like that was her own voice. And I love it. I love it when you get that little multi-talented spread of someone who you wouldn't, think in a million years would have that kind of talent, because they're so, perhaps their acting style or their character they're playing is so buttoned up. But, but even during TNG, Patrick Stewart would bust out singing, maybe when he was not really being himself, he was playing a character, or, in Insurrection when he did his little mambo dance, which was, gracefully short, thank God, because I didn't really care for it. But No, I liked this episode. Picard had a little moment with his ancestor at the end where he's kind of talking her off a ledge and giving her that extremely ancient slash android wisdom that he kind of talks her along the way. And even at the end of it, we get the little subplot that you have the Sung ancestor, Adam Sung. Thank God in the corner of this page I'm looking at, it has popular pages. Adam Sung is one because I'm like, I know it starts with an A or an A or an O noise. That's all the Sungs, all of them. Q shows up and is manipulating him, saying, well, if Renee Picard lives, it means that your daughter is going to die. And, so it's just, oh, yeah. But that's not that's not hardly the threat of it, because what do we find out about his daughter, air quotes, when we cut over to her?
What do you mean with like Renee?
No, the Sung's daughter. Sung's
daughter,
yeah,
sorry. I was like, wait, yes, no, that she's actually just like some weird, like genetically engineered that he's been manufacturing them and basically trying to figure out, like, basically eugenics.
Right. Or rediscover it, because if you remember in the Trek chronology, the eugenics wars happened in the 1990s, thankfully, somewhere in a corner of the world that we never heard anything. I mean, I never heard about it when I was in high school. I guess it was happening somewhere in Canada or whatever. I don't know. But I mean, Sung, as you and I have touched upon it, I know that Enterprise is kind of a Star Trek blind spot for you. You've not seen it, or you've seen it and you don't like it. I'm trying to remember.
I watched I think one episode, maybe 2 episodes, and I was just like, oh, this is just boring and just really forced.
I mean, give it 2 seasons. And
that's
then
a lot of time for me to give something.
No, I know. Yeah, if you watch and again, when you and I finish talking about DS9, that's when Peter will come back and he and I will talk about Enterprises. He's a bigger fan.
Yes, but we can let him have that.
Absolutely. But as I kind of teased last week, there was another. I think it was Auric Singh in the 2150s, which is when Enterprise takes place, who was an imprisoned geneticist because he was imprisoned because he tried to liberate a series of embryos that were left over from the eugenics wars. And so this is basically another Sung ancestor trying to kind of do it on his own, but not figuring it out. But what's crazy is that obviously the avatar, the face that he creates, ends up being the avatar that Data creates, or Data's, or I would say another Sung ancestor creates another face that looks like that 300 years later. So something about that. It's like in the Sung, they got those 2 faces. Boop, boop,
yes.
Boop. That's all you got going.
Well, and it seems like that's just kind of a repeated trend with them. It's just like, oh, well, they're ancestors, so they look exactly like that person. Right, and I was like, exactly. I don't remember that being a thing. Like, I'm pretty sure my great-great-grandma did not, like, we had similarities, but did not look exactly like me.
My, it's just really great that they didn't throw, Tom Hardy in a wig and make that Renee Picard.
Oh my goodness.
Tom Hardy was a clone of Picard in the horrible Nemesis movie, which I think later this summer I have the double header of you, Peter, and I talking about that movie. It won't be the first time I podcasted about that film, because I did that on someone else's podcast a couple of years ago. God, do I love to tear up that fucking film. She's so bad. Oh my God, I would never tire of it. It's the only real segment of Star Trek outside of the JJ films that I just absolutely will rip to shreds. Because otherwise I'm an unconditional lover of Star Trek. But anyway, as we frequently do, we're kind of off topic here, but so Adam Sung says, well, I got to take her out because Q had said, and he's going to save my daughter or whatever. So Q's blackmailing him. Well, oops, Butterfingers, he runs into Picard instead.
I mean, in all fairness, I wouldn't have expected, a 90-year-old man be that spry and be able to knock her out of the way.
Right. But, I mean, he's an android, but he's a vanilla android. He doesn't really, but maybe he has some kind of reflexes or something or other. And I don't know, maybe he's a little more android than we knew. So anyhow.
we figured that out at the end of the episode when they have to take him back to the clinic and they go to use the defibrillator on him, and it shocks the entire
Right,
the
exactly.
entire system, because I was like, oh no, that's not a good idea.
Right, exactly. And it's not like, old Picard had an artificial heart, and this one doesn't.
Mhm.
He's entirely artificial, but it's one of those that, they're androids. It's like the are you a Battlestar Galactica fan? I keep talking about it and I don't even
Yes,
know.
yes, I have seen
Okay,
it.
gotcha. So it's
Mhm.
just like, it's the skin jobs, the humanoid Cylons.
Yeah,
They're indistinguishable. So,
right.
the Sung androids are clearly, obviously the same. So, yeah, to wrap things up, they're all standing around in the clinic of, Rios's would-be girlfriend. She's not there. I don't know if she wasn't there yet or she shows up in the next episode.
No, she
But
was there because she helped stabilize him, but she
oh,
couldn't
that's
figure
right. She
out
was
why
like,
he was why he wasn't awake. Yeah.
oh, that's right. And so, Rafi says the cliche, I don't know how much worse things could get. And as it says right here in the recap, as in response to that, Agnes, now controlled by the Borg Queen, is wandering the streets of LA with interlapping voices in her head. It's like, oh, this is going poorly, really
Yes,
poorly. And then
very, very poorly.
I saw the 30-second trailer for next week's episode, and it looks like things kind of take a leap forward from there. So, but without further ado, we jump into what we kindly refer to as the transitional filler episode. That's right, episode 8 is called Monsters. Talon, who is of course the Romulan, though she does a little trick to give herself a Romulan ear. Maybe she's trying to, throw Picard a bone or something. I don't know what's going on here. But of course, she's the Gary 7. She has this little device that's a TOS reference, which I'm sure we talked about last week, didn't we? Gary 7,
Kind of, yeah.
Sir, whatever it is. You can look it up. Talon ventures inside Picard's subconscious, which is, I mean, not only it's a Star Trek trope, but it's a sci-fi trope in general. We're going to go in your mind,
Yes,
blah,
it was
blah,
just
blah.
I have this magical thing and I can help them get out of their subconscious because they're trapped there and we don't know why.
Right, exactly. So it's a Doctor Who, Star Trek, whatever, and they've done it. It's all across. But anyway, she goes into her subconscious to help wake him up from a coma and face the darkest secrets and deepest fears. Seven and Raffi go in search of Girardi, whom they fear has succumbed to the monster inside. See what they did there? Rio struggles to hide the truth of who he really is from Teresa, giving us a very nice homage to Star Trek 4. Did you catch it when the two of them were talking at the end?
Yes.
Are you from outer space? I'm from Chile. I only work in outer space. Ha ha! Oh, what a delicious pun! Oh my goodness. So yeah, this episode again gave us a mashup uniform, which I'm kind of fond of. So I immediately went on the uniform groups. People said, well, it's just in his head, so it's not a real uniform. But I dug it because if I can go off on a tangent, talk about Starfleet fashion for a moment.
Of course.
This is, we got this season, we're a little bit more back to the waistcoat kind of look, which as a cosplayer, I like, because boy, a jumpsuit is sometimes a little unforgiving, even with all your Spanx and everything holding it. I mean, you saw me up there on stage with Jerry O'Connell. I was wearing stuff, but I wasn't wearing enough because I was still like, ugh. So, but no, it's a waistcoat look. With a kind of unquilted shoulders, the way not like the first contact uniform where it's the gray shoulders are lined. These were unlined, but it was still the same first contact undershirt, so like color division and zip right up to the neck. I really dig that style, but I'm afraid I'll never see it because people are like, it's not real. But anyway, Picard is trapped in his mind, and he's talking to a Starfleet psychologist who is, of course, James Callis, Gaius Baltar from Battlestar Galactica. And he's, they're hashing out all the regular shit that you would expect anybody to talk about when they're in a counseling appointment that they don't want to be in. So you say, Picard, you're so distant. Everybody calls you Captain instead of your first name because you're not close to anybody. Blah, 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 blue, blue, blue. And you're like, okay, well, this is pretty tropish. But Picard starts, thinking back and flashing back to these wonderful times with his mom, who he worshipped. But, there was a flashback scene we saw I think it was earlier this season where, something was chasing them, and was it his father? Maybe his father was abusive, or he was an alcoholic, and he beat her or something. They
were very heavily inflecting that her father or that his father was abusive. Yes,
right, exactly. So, but again, in the subconscious, and as they drill down, and as he's fighting to start to escape, you learn a little bit more about the truth that obviously the psychologist that he's seeing is in fact his father. at the age that, Picard was when he's having these visions of his mother. So Picard is, 10, let's say, and his mother and his father, who we both see in flashback during TNG. We see his mother as a very elderly woman in a super early episode where the crew is stuck in a part of space where whatever they fantasize becomes reality. So Picard fantasizes talking to his mother and having tea with her, blah, blah, blah. Then we see his father as, again, an old man. Interestingly enough, during a Q episode, Tapestry, which we talked about, where Picard is near death and, his father shows up to him and tells him what a huge disappointment he is. And just what everybody wants to hear from their dad when they're dying. Oh, you're such a disappointment. Because, yeah. But anyway, so what we really find out is kind of surprising. So anyway, I've done all the talking. What did you think about the big reveal?
I first off was very confused because I thought that was who was it? The gentleman who plays Dr. Bashir, and I think it's just because I had been watching so much. Deep Space Nine.
Alexander Siddig or Siddig El Fidel, which is
and I was like, wait a second, wait, what? And then then it took me a second, and I realized I'm like, oh, okay, no, that's actually the guy. But I watched a good section of the episode thinking that was Bashir, so I was very confused.
There was a lot of people throwing that out there because again, Bashir, Sid as he's referred to, we'll just call him Sid because again, his given first name is a little bit more difficult to pronounce, at least for me. So he changed his stage name to Alexander Siddig after DS9 had been on for a while because I think he was running into a lot of people not really being able to pronounce it. Maybe it's frustrating to him, whatever it is. But yeah, there is a similarity to them. But Sid they both have beards, but Sid is completely gray. He was actually at Mission Chicago. He was one of the celebs that I didn't get.
Well, and I mean, I haven't seen him since DS9.
Right.
So, I mean, not having seen them and them bringing back all of these old characters, I was like, wait a second, what is Dr. Bashir doing here?
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, that would have been a great opportunity for a crossover, absolutely.
Right. Well, and
but it wouldn't have made a lot of sense.
No, it wouldn't have, and that's why I was so confused. Yeah. That's why I was so confused. But I don't know how I don't like filler episodes. And I liked the theme of him coming in and realizing oh no, your enemy, and then him acknowledging, oh, I guess I never really knew you, so that's where I kind of failed, is that I wasn't able to know my enemy as far as my father goes. I didn't really love the inflections that maybe it wasn't that his dad wasn't abusive, it was just his mom was crazy. And so that was this just seems like there's a lot of weird up in the air stuff when this entire season is becoming weird up in the air stuff.
Well, it just seems to be very non-connective. Because again, we're having this, it's like Star Trek 4, which they're like, we went back to Earth and we had to do a thing and then we had to break out. And they're like, we went back to Earth and we have to do a thing and we're here for 10 episodes. So we're going to have some weird side shit happen. I hear you. I definitely hear where you're coming from.
I would have really preferred it just being weird side shit with more Jurati and the Queen. Continue on that struggle and build up that relationship. Or have more with Rafi and Seven because they're sitting there making jokes about how they're going to be this wonderful couple that's going to make everything better and, trip teenagers on their floaters with their canes when they're an old couple. But I'm like, I haven't seen any dynamic between you two, save for maybe a little bit in the last episode that's making me think you would ever get back together.
Yeah, exactly.
So I just feel like they're and then now Picard's in the FBI. He got captured by the FBI.
Right.
So there's another plot thread that we have to go follow.
Well, and I will at least point something out about that. I mean, he wakes up and he's good, and he goes back to CQ and everything, or Guinan, young Guinan. And the guy who comes in there and says, I want to have a drink, blah, blah, blah. And I'm with the FBI. That actor, and I don't know if you've seen this flying around social media, that very same actor, and I don't know his name off the top of my head, in Voyager, played a temporal agent that actually Seven met, that sent her back on a mission to the past or into the present to fix something. So he is. There was an episode of Voyager, maybe it was season 6 or 7, where there was, and it all spawned off of that episode where Voyager went back to the present in 1996, and Sarasota was guest star, and Ed Begley Jr. Yep. And it was that Captain Braxton. It was that guy, and then he showed.
Yes, I remember. I did not like him.
he showed up. He was recast as a different actor. It was actor Bruce McGill, who you've seen in stuff. He's one of those character actors. And this dude, who is now playing the FBI agent, was his XO, his lieutenant. So a lot of people are saying, well, it's the same actor. Could it be a coincidence? He was in,
He's a time cop.
He's a time cop, and then he showed up. So yeah, it could be a big fake out. So I mean, we will find out obviously on Thursday,
right? Along with the other 20 other loose plot threads that they need to put together.
You're right. So this is I think I just found a name for our episode. This is the season of loose plot threads. That's what I'm going to call it. Oh my gosh, loose plot. So anyway, I'm not really digging it. I'm not really digging it, even though I loved seeing James Callis, and I always love to see a cool new uniform. But it's like, this was 3/4 of it was filler of him waking up and.
And again, I think the episode on its own, it was a very interesting episode. Mm-hmm. But in culmination with everything else that they have going on,
right?
I would have rather seen development with other characters. I know the show, slap me. The show is called Picard. I get it. We're talking about Picard.
Right.
But everybody else is just feeling so flat because Girardi had amazing moments in the last episode. And
right.
They're just I feel like they're just not fulfilling on a lot of this stuff.
Right.
Because they're just like, no, we've got to do all of these things and we've got to, have all of these different plot points and, develop Picard even more. So.
Right, yeah. So they're looking to do Seven and Rafi plus Picard and figuring out the struggles with the chick who may or may not be his Romulan girlfriend or whatever. And then you've got Q plus the Sung and the genetically engineered, and you've got Rios and the girl. And
he brought on the spaceship with her kid. So that's another plot thread now that we have to deal with.
So many threads. Well, and we have 3 episodes. We have 3 episodes left.
Yeah,
and we know that next season is going to clearly have a different storyline because it's going to be starring the TNG cast. They got the whole band back together. So
exactly.
Really looking forward to that. Oh, that was a news story maybe we didn't talk about a couple weeks ago. Entire TNG cast has wrapped filming on season 3 of Picard. There's your retroactive news bit.
Yay!
Boom! Yay! All right, so. That's a wrap on segment 1. Moving on to beginning a new series, Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Yay!
Well, excuse me. It's a new series for us because this is season 2. Season 2 was the first full season of the show because season 1 came on in January of 93, ran from January to June. This aired from, September to 93 to May of 94. So it was your regular kind of 26 episode deal. And kicked off with the first 3-parter, I think that, that I ever remember out of any Star Trek, and is one of my absolute favorites. I thought it was really great. So I will kick it off with episode 1, The Homecoming, directed by Winrich Colby, who's a veteran director of the series. Story by Jerry Taylor, who later the same year would actually go on to create Star Trek Voyager, and Ira Steven Behr, who is the showrunner of the program. Aired in September of 93. Kira rescues a Bajoran resistance hero from a Cardassian labor camp, and an extremist group calls for all non-Bajorans to leave Bajor. Part 1 of 3, and it's the season premiere. Damn, did I remember loving this episode. I was like, because again, you're getting out of, the freshman slump. You're getting into what some might call not a lot of people call season 2 like a sophomore slump, but season 1 of most shows that I can think of are kind of rough. And I know in the first season of DS9, they're really focused on stuff happened at the station, and it's at the station, and nobody's leaving the station. Every show is a bottle show, and blah, 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 blah. But nobody really likes that. You know what I mean? So this was we have this is before they had the Defiant, which they didn't get until season 3. So they have their little runabouts, which I like runabouts. I think they're pretty.
Yeah, I think they're fun.
They're big old shuttlecrafts with a bathroom and a shower. You know what I mean? So it's kind of a big deal. So it's glamping for Starfleet. Because you can go camping in a runabout. So anyway, so Kira does learn of this resistance hero, Lee Nallis, who is being held undercover in a prison, and it's still in a Cardassian labor camp. She convinces Cisco to go snag him. Brian comes along for, because it wouldn't be a road trip if you were by yourself. And they rescue this dude. They bring him back. And it's pretty interesting because you bring this guy back, and he instantly reminds me of, first of all, he was the actor whose name I can't remember, and I looked this up not long after the Steven Spielberg version of the film came out last fall. This guy played Tony in West Side Story in the 1960s.
Oh,
same dude. I know, right?
Funny.
So at any rate, yeah, this guy comes back and he's kind of this reluctant, like, well, I'm not really that big of a deal, and blah blah blah. And
he humble warrior.
He was very humble. He was kind of shy and self-effacing. He kind of reminded me of when I met Anson Mount. Anson Mount, when he was sitting at the table to sign the autograph, he was just kind of sitting there with his hands crossed and like he was just uncomfortable being there. And that's okay. But yeah, this guy reveals that well, the big story about me is kind of a sham because I shot a Cardassian who was getting it was in his underwear, and then fortunately Cisco says, you shot him in his underwear, how'd you get in there? Come on. Oh, that's a good one. But at the end of it, this government official, who was played by Frank Langella, another great character actor, who has a hate on for Kira, yanks her job and gives it to this dude, and then that's the end of the episode. Great way to start the season. Hey, one of our regulars, boop, they give you a thought they're going to get rid of her. So what'd you think? So did you watch DS9? Is this your first or second run through watching DS9?
This is my second run through. I watched it my first time through, I think it was probably like 3 years ago with my dad when he was staying with us. So it was just something fun that we could put on in the background and kind of like hang out. And I definitely remember it immediately kind of hitting home because I really love Kira. I love Dax. There was just a really great kind of wider berth of characters. And I remember when we got to season 2, I really appreciated how Cisco felt like he was coming into his own.
Yeah.
Because it just seemed like they didn't know what to do with him in the first season because he'd have all these really good lines and his voice had really great inflection, but his face would be completely deadpan. And I'm like, what are you what direction are they giving you? Just like, right. Can I see something? Can I have some sort of emotion there? And it seemed like in season 2, you're starting to get a little bit more emotive, and it seemed like they're finally starting to figure out what they want to do with his character. And so that's really great. And of course, Odo is a sarcastic asshole as always. Love him for that. It's great. And I really like kicking it off with the 3-parter. It's one of my favorite things about DS9 is that there is this kind of continual thematic story. I mean, when you're looking at the fact that we started out, TNG season 2, episode 1 with, what's her face losing her kid.
Yeah, right.
And, and then everybody just being like, oh, okay. And now we're never going to talk about it again.
Well, what's worse about that story in particular is that was a recycled plot from Star Trek Phase 2, which was they turned into obviously Star Trek The Motion Picture, which of course just had a re-release. But the characters of Riker and Troy were the characters of Decker and Ilea from that film.
And that's the thing, like
the bald chick. So they couldn't. They were just like, well, they were hard up for scripts. So like, let's just take this one and we'll already cross some names out or whatever. Yeah, exactly.
Right, and that's the thing is that contrast was really like it's good to see them kind of following through and being like, yes, there are repercussions for actions and there are some follow through. I mean, like granted, not all the time. Like there are several episodes, even in this set, where like Quark should definitely have been in jail. Several times.
Yep, that's the one that's going to follow up this 3-part. Yeah, he's the one that's like, how did Quark not get himself killed doing this?
Yeah, but overall, I think like I'm just going to kind of talk about it like in a set as far as the 3 goes because I can't really separate them out in my head. And
me neither, barely. No, keep going.
And honestly, I looking at this, I love it how you tell us like who wrote it and who directed it and everything because all of these 3 episodes were written by someone else.
Right.
And it's still a very cohesive story. They introduce some kind of like main like villain-esque or like anti-heroes because you have the super conservative extremist lady.
Right, yeah, Kylie, or Vetequin at this point.
Or Vetequin, yeah.
Yeah, she becomes Sky later on, right?
Oh, I don't like her. I know I'm not supposed to like her, but she just every time.
I know. Well, yeah, I mean, and she just gets worse.
She does. Yes.
Just like Ducat, who we don't see
Oh, yes.
we don't see him in this episode, but we do get him in a taste of one of the other ones in the set. But he
Yes.
just gets more horrible as the series goes on.
Yes.
Like a true villain really should when they have dimensions. But yeah, just real quickly, yeah. So episodes 2 is the Circle, episode 3 is the Siege, and what we follow is that we find out that the Frank Langella character is the guy who runs the Circle. He's trying to get rid of the Federation out of the Bajoran sector by getting, he's buying weapons through a third party. But the supplier of the weapons is the Cardassians, because the Cardassians want Starfleet to leave because they just come back and reconquer Bajor, and it's no big deal.
Yeah.
Which of course our people uncover. And what happens is when the Circle says all non-Bajoran at the end of episode 2, when they say all non-Bajorans leave DS9 immediately, or you'll be fired upon, a group of the Starfleet folks tuck away, and they after Kira's kidnapped, she's rescued. She comes back with evidence of what I just said, and then they've got to send her to the Bajoran capital so she can deliver this. And this is what's happening throughout episodes 2 and 3. So episode 2 is and episode 3 is kind of this big diehard. Oh no, that's mostly episode 3. Is this big diehard thing? They're crawling through conduits and capturing. Nobody gets killed until the end, because always at the end, because again there's the big hero sacrifice with Lee Nallis throwing himself in front of. It's Steven Weber from Wings. He's one of the bad Bajorans, which I just love. But yeah, he does the classic. When the jig is up and and it's obvious that of the Bajoran people who try to take over the stations, that the dude from Wings is one of the bad guys. He tries to shoot Cisco, and Lee Nallis does the no and takes the laser blast. And then he has some cool guy line, and he said, he's dying. He's like, "Merry Christmas" or something. I don't know. He says something.
I think he said something about how he got out of it or something, because the.
I'm off the hook. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
you're off the hook.
It was off the hook. So I dug it. This also kind of gave us some fuel to what will become the series' first romance, which is Vedic Bareil and Kira become a couple, and in typical. That runs for about a season and ends tragically, but we don't need to talk about that. But yeah, I love the 3-part. But yeah, like you said, it's a tribute to a writing staff that you can have 3 people write 3 episodes that are interlinking and have it flow. Yeah. Helps the fact that Michael Piller, who wrote the 3rd one, was the late Michael Piller. He died, I think, 3 years later of cancer. Was one of the series co-creators. So absolutely slam dunk. Probably, in my opinion, the best standalone series premiere, I think, because in a lot of series premieres you got it's a cliffhanger or it's some throwaway piece of junk like TNG season 2, where this was pretty rock solid. So I would put this up as a great example of, God, someday if they finally decide to do HD transfers of DS9, I would love to watch this as a single unbroken, like just stick them all together. Oh yeah, that'd be great. It'd be absolutely gorgeous. So anyway, moving on to episode 4. This one's all you.
Oh, goody. Invasive Procedures, directed by Les Landau, story by John Wepley, teleplay by John Wepley and Robert Hewitt Wolf. It aired on October 17th, 1993, and it is a desperate Trill tries to steal the Dax symbiote.
Dun, womp.
This is just all the audacity. That's what this is. Just the entitlement and the audacity.
Oh, my new episode title. Keep talking.
Oh, just all the audacity. Yes. I was just so angry the entire time. I just wanted to slap this man as he's walking in being like, I deserve a Dax. Right. And basically, this is the episode that Quark should have gone to jail.
He was such a millennial.
Should have gone to jail. Hey, excuse me.
Oh, well, I'm just saying.
Excuse me?
It's very stereotypically millennial. Am I wrong?
Boomer language?
Excuse me. I am a Gen Xer. Thank you.
No, I'm not saying you.
Okay, boomer.
No. I meant that I have experienced it more from the boomer generation than the millennial generation. Coming from customer service.
Oh, you know what? That's a very good point. Yes, the customer entitlement. He is the entitled customer. Yep. Yes. Now I get it.
But it comes everybody is still kind of off the space dock or off DS9. There is a plasma storm going on, so everybody's had to evacuate. They're on a skeleton crew. For some reason, Quark is there because he is getting himself into trouble. He has messed with the airlocks, and so this other team comes in. They invade, and of course, Quark bites off more than he can chew because that's always how it works.
Right.
And part of this, pirate guys thing is that one of them is a Trill who thinks that he studied and he worked really hard and he was denied a symbiote, so he should get a symbiote. And so his plan is to steal the Dax symbiote. And
sure, I got you. That works.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Which of course will kill Jadzia, but he says that that's okay for her to die because he will
That's
get what he
okay.
wants. Because that's how
my
it
God.
should be, because he was denied that. So,
Oh my God! And it's exceptional actor John Glover, who I thought was one of the best parts of that. I love the WB Smallville, by the way, and he was Lionel Luthor, Lex Luthor's dad. He was great, and he's great in this. I like him.
And that's the thing. Like, even though, like, because again, there were episodes in TNG where I was like, "This is just absurd. This is stupid." And I felt like it was just kind of insulting writing. This one, even though I absolutely hated this guy, and I just, again, all of the audacity, I still loved the episode.
Right. No, I absolutely agree.
Yeah. Cisco just shines brightly as he's, kind of doing some sabotage stuff and a little bit of like covert ops, like getting people to turn against each other.
So manipulative. Well,
being super manipulative.
That's that Starfleet command level training, which of course
I
have had in spades as a fleet captain. You're an operator. You're smooth. You're Captain Kirk. Everybody's Captain Kirk. You can talk a computer to death 5 times in a row. No big deal. This I thought everybody did great. We also had Tim Russ, who was later Tuvok in Voyager, was the Klingon.
Oh, that's where I recognized him from.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Okay.
That's he has played a Vulcan, a Klingon, and 2 different humans in Star Trek. Yeah, so he is now that's at all compared to actor Vaughn Armstrong, who has played every race of Starfleet alien and some humans, but we'll talk about that some other time. We'll talk about that when we get around to an episode that he's in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really dug it, and again, it was a good Star Trek-ish kind of story. Learned a lot about the Trill, learned a little bit more about Cisco and the Dax Symbian and Curzon and all this different stuff, and kind of how the Trill species continues to function. The Trill, in general, are one of those species that they were introduced in TNG with this whole rule set that absolutely got thrown out the window when they figured they wanted to have a regular cast member as a member of the species, because in that TNG episode where they were introduced, it was a Trill was having a romance with Dr. Crusher, but he couldn't go through the transporter, which just doesn't work if you have a regular ongoing cast member. Plus, he was really unhealthy because the joining wasn't easy and stuff. So like all that shit went away when the show came along, which is fine because all that stuff is not really interesting for storytelling. So
right.
that ends up working out. Moving on, episode 5 is Cardassians, directed by Cliff Bole, again a veteran. Story by these are 2 names I don't know: Gene Willandy and John Wright. Don't know they ever wrote anything again, but we'll find out. Teleplayed by James Crocker. Again aired in October of '93. Garrick and Dr. Bashir investigate abandoned Cardassian war orphans on Bajor. What a great episode.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was a slam dunk. We're getting to see, the burgeoning friendship between Garrick and Dr. Bashir, which is going to become a cornerstone of the series as things go along. And you're really learning about Garrick, and again, why is he exiled? Well, Garrick he's this master manipulator. He's, I think this delivered that famous meme where Bashir and Garrick are talking at the end of the episode, and it's one of those. Believe the truth, believe the lies, especially the lies, especially the lies. I wish I could remember the line of dialogue, but this was great. We learned a fair chunk about Cardassian society. They're phenomenally family driven. The line is spoken in this that at some Cardassian homes 7 generations eat at the same dinner table, which is, of course, not at all like our American society in a lot of ways, where we have family members we don't speak to, myself included, for very good reason. But no, it's really interesting because, again, what turns out is this: the way the episode kicks off is there's this Bajoran business person coming out of the station. He's got a young Cardassian boy with him, and Garrick approaches him, and the kid freaks out on Garrick. And because of that, they start to investigate and find out that obviously the kid is an adopted orphan. But through DNA tests, they found out that he's not an orphan. His dad is this huge Cardassian government official. And the whole plot thread is revealed that he was hidden away so that this official wouldn't find him because they wanted to embarrass him, because Gul Dukat, who then factors into the story. And then you get to see Dukat and Garrick in the same room at the same time, learning about the history between the two of them later. You understand the grinding teeth and the laser eyeballs. You know what I mean? And at the end, Rugal, who's the young boy, goes back with his father, Kotan Padar, the government official. So really heavy stuff. Yeah. I think, especially when you hold it up against the lens of TNG, which in their season 2 was like, there's a hole in space, and there's a thing in the hole in space, and then we have Irish space people, and one of them seduces Riker. It's just like a lot of bullshit that happened in season 2 of TNG, where in this they're like war orphans and political intrigue and da-da-da. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. You go ahead.
Yeah, I say, and it's one of those of kind of the trolley problem, because you have Rugal, who very clearly has expressed, no, I want to be with my adoptive parents.
Right.
I am happy there. I do not know who this dude is. Now, there's the whole, there's underpinnings of, self-hatred and, the problems that come when you're being raised as an adoptee, especially, I have heard a lot of discussions from, children who are raised by marginalized communities who are raised by white parents, and then they come out of that being like, my parents are very racist, and then that turns out to be a problem later. So I think there were a lot of little underpinnings that they didn't quite express or discuss as much, but there was still, again, something that I really like about DS9 is them going in and being like, there's no clean answer to this problem. Regardless of where this kid goes, there's going to be problems for them, because he is a child of war, where this was just a bad scene for him. And it just kind of really reiterates that kind of theme that's going to be playing out throughout this entire series.
True enough. Yeah. A definite bright early spot. So I was pretty impressed by that.
Yes. And also Garrick is just he is my Data of DS9. I mean, anything Andrew Robinson, every time he comes on screen, I'm like, yes, just 100%. I just want Garrick antics all the time, no matter what's happening.
Give him a big pair of dentures so he can chew on that scenery. Oh,
yes, exactly.
So good. Oh my God. All right. Episode 6. Take us home.
Yes. All right. Melora, directed by Winrich Colby, and stories by Evan Carlos Summers, and teleplay by Evan Carlos Summers, Stephen Baum, Michael Filler, and James Cocker. And it was in October of '93 as well. And Dr. Bashir ends up falling in love with a new officer when he develops a way for her to function in a high-gravity environment. Meanwhile, Quark receives a death threat from one of his former associates.
Dun dun, not surprising. Everybody wants to kill Quark. Yeah, Quark.
The only surprising thing about that was that he was not in jail after letting out a bunch of space pirates onto the station.
Yeah, like I said, even Kira says, famous line that just to dip back, Kira says, "No matter what happens, you're out of here." And at the end of it, because he gets brave and helps break it up, he's like, "No, we're good.
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
It's fine. We can't reach out of the show. You got a contract." To me, this was kind of an Alien of the Week throwaway episode. You have this species from a planet where they don't have much gravity, so they basically fly around all over the place, and that part of it was kind of a throwaway. But the other part, it had to do kind of with individuals of disabilities, which I think continued to be a burgeoning issue, certainly in the early 1990s. You know what I mean? So that part of it, absolutely, I thought, and again, I don't have a lot of experience with that myself, but it's a very real, part of people's lives, millions of people around the world. So that is something I think Star Trek does an incredibly great job touching even social issues that are, that are some just in your everyday life. But then again, the kind of she was not discriminated against by anyone in Starfleet, because Starfleet is this warm, inviting place. But, she had a real chip on her shoulder, which was kind of to be expected. But her real enemy in this was the stupid Cardassian station that she couldn't get around because, a raised lip at every door and she's fallen out of her chair and stuff. So, while the Starfleet Society is very open and inviting and, inclusive, it's just more proof that the Cardassian station that they're on is very alien and exclusive. So it just really kind of drives home kind of one of the further points of the series, just in kind of in a little way, I think.
Well, and it's like, it's one of those of like yes and no for the inclusivity, because like she points out immediately, like Dr. Bashir was in her briefing meeting for literally no reason other than the fact that like she had like a quote unquote disability. Mm-hmm. And I would have liked to see it leaned into more of like, there's literally nothing wrong with her except for the fact that the world was not built with her in mind. And because she had this one issue, the entire, like, basically she had to change everything about her life to fit into this society versus that society making some minor accommodations. Because like, honestly, like, yes, Starfleet was inclusive to a certain point where you can't tell me she's the only one who has mobility issues. Right. So the fact that they didn't immediately go, okay, you know what, we should be changing these, lifts on these doors, and we should be putting ramps up, and we should be making it so that that there is accessibility in all of these places, regardless of who's trying to walk in. It was just something that the rest of the crew didn't have to deal with. So until they got to that point, they were like, oh, shoot, this is an afterthought for us. Maybe we should try to change it. And then they only changed very limited areas that they thought she would need, even though it ended up being where she was having to go into places because and they were like, well, you should have just waited for, Dax, or you should have just done this. And it's like, she shouldn't have to, because a normal person, or someone else who wasn't in her position wouldn't have had to.
Well, and to extend the metaphor, it's kind of, and they really make it as, the holodoc on Voyager. It's the same way. He starts off as just being in sickbay, and then season 3 gets his mobile emitter, but in the time in between, he goes back and forth to the holodeck, and because he's the only medical officer on board, he fights for his rights to be included in staff briefings and to be treated like a sentient being because he really is. So it's kind of an extension of that metaphor. The other plot line in this episode is that Bashir magically discovers, I can give you normal legs or whatever, and she's like, I'm thinking about it because I'm in love with you, and that's very tired. And at the end, she decides that, you know what, whatever. I don't really care to do that. I don't want to change my life for this dude. So, and then she finishes her assignment and she's gone. So, and we do get the Klingon restaurant and the singing Klingon opera. So that's pretty, and and them ordering, Klingon food, I thought was kind of fun. And let me have some, is that too much for two?
Well, again, just another time that Bashir underestimates her, because he's like, oh, let me order for you. And that he just assumes she's never had Klingon food. And it turns out that she ends up yelling at the dude in Klingon. And she has this huge argument with the food guy. Yeah. Because she knew that he had better crack, and he was holding it back on them. And she's like, we need fresher stuff.
I got it under the table, exactly. So, So Bashir's kind of a chauvinist pig, which is a leitmotif that we see out of him in his pursuit with Dax, particularly in season 1. Because he's like, and it's just like, come on, bro.
Yeah,
come on.
Worf was the best choice there.
Yeah, without a doubt. Well, that takes us through the first 6 episodes of DS9. This was good. I'm looking forward to it. The season does get meatier as it goes on, so I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, good stuff. All righty, Roo. Okay, Katie, take us on out of here.
Yes, of course. For more information about Starfleet International, please visit the Grand Petoskey and Regional 13 on Facebook.
Oh, yeah! Friends, as always, thank you for joining us. I'm going to tell you that sharing is caring and to keep on trekking.
And wherever you go boldly.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. Visit secretfriendsunite.com for more great shows, articles, news, reviews, and more. Secret Friends Unite podcasts are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and other podcast services around the world. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, you can join us on Facebook or our new Discord server, or follow @SecretFriendsU on Twitter. Please subscribe to Secret Friends Unite on YouTube and visit our merch store at tpublic.com. Just search Secret Friends Unite.